So we have already seen that measurements of time and measurements of position, they depend on the observer. Also, synchronization depends on the observer. For this latter, two events that take place at the same instant of time for one observer will take place at different times for other observers. Let's look at a very simple example on this topic. Consider two identical spaceships moving towards each other. We have three observers. You are at rest outside of the ships and see how one moves to the right and the other moves to the left. We have the Doctor on the ship on the left, and we have Missy on the ship on the right. Both ships are going to pass each other. They move on the x-axis. The Doctor moves to the right and Missy moves to the left. We define the event A when both tips of the ships are at the same x position. Event V will be when the tips of the Doctor ships coincides with the rear of Mrs. ship. Event C is when the rear of the Doctor ships coincides with the tip of Mrs. ship, and event D when both rears coincide. As seen from your reference frame, you see both identical ships moving. Because of length contraction, both are contracted with respect to their rest length. Because they both move with the same speed as seen by you, they are both contracted the same amount. So they're still identical to you. As they approach, you see how event A takes place first, then B and C take place simultaneously, and finally event D. Now, let's see what happens from the Doctor's reference frame. She is at rest in her reference frame and observes how Mrs. ship is approaching. Because of length contraction, Mrs. ship will be shorter than hers. Mrs. ship is the one moving. From the Doctor's reference frame, event A takes place first, then event B, then event C, and finally event D. But events B and C are not simultaneously now. Let's go to Mrs. reference frame. Mrs. is at rest in her reference frame, and it is the Doctor that is moving towards her. Because of length contraction, the Doctor's ship is contracted now, and it is the one moving towards Mrs. From Mrs. frame, event A takes place first, but then event C, then event B, and finally event D. So we see that the order at which events take place depend on the reference frame, and this is something we need to be careful about and make no assumptions. We need to calculate the times and positions of the different events to have an accurate picture of what is going on in special relativity. For this, we need the equations of transformation of Lorentz that allow us to calculate x when we know x prime and t prime, and allow us to calculate t when we know x prime and t prime.